In today's rapid evolving digital landscape where the cloud plays a pivotal role in shaping the way we conduct business, ensuring robust security measure is a paramount importance. Today we are fortunate to have a team of experts from Tenable, a renowned leader in cybersecurity who will guide us through the essential building blocks and maturity journey of cloud security. Now, without further ado, I have the honor to introducing the team that will be leading us through this enlightening journey. The individuals before you are not just experts in their field, they are trailblazers who have dedicated their careers to staying ahead of the ever-changing threat landscape. First, let me introduce Mr. Sudeep Das from Tenable, who brings a wealth of expertise in cloud security. Sudeep has been a forefront of innovative approaches to security of cloud environments. Joining Sudeep is Mr. Gagan Sugant from Tenable. With a background of remote infrastructure management and security operations, Gagan has been driving force in developing the strategic solutions. So their commitment to excellence and passionate for safeguarding digital assets make them invaluable resource for today's workshop. So without further delay, I invite Mr. Sudeep to take the stage.
We have already lost 20 minutes, so we'll try and make up a little bit by maybe keeping short the presentation part. I do have a few slides as a context setting. I'll take you through what we want to do. And a very quick show of hands of how many are ready to do a workshop with their laptop. 1, 2, okay. Please, can you make note? So we do have the user ID passwords that we have created for you. While we are going through the presentations, my colleagues would be distributing that. And we'll, go through a little bit of onboarding. So we'll spend some time there on onboarding onto the system. What we'll try to do is, of course, let me come to that part later. Once I think, right? Lior is on the Zoom. Is he on the Zoom? He's not on the Zoom, sorry. There was some internet connectivity issues because of which. Lior is from our Israel center where the product that we are going to showcase, the solution, they have been pioneering this and got onboarded onto the Tenable platform just 2 months back. And already in these 2 months, we've been able to architect them together into the whole thing. So that is what I'll be spending a little bit of time talking about what is it that we are trying to do and how does cloud security fit into that overall platform around exposure management that we want to work about. Okay, security is about roughly 3 layers: proactive security, detective security, and resiliency. Of course, you can break down many things. Our idea or our passion has been only around the proactive security, right? We want to talk about what is the weakness in your environment that potentially can be used by a hacker. We have not talked about an attack going on at this point of time, but the potential of an attack. With that in mind, one of the things that we started doing was covering any digital asset that potentially could be a part of your attack path, right? It could be a camera, it could be a server, it could be a user ID, it could be a API, it could be XYZ, right? We can continue that list of digital assets that one can hack into, right? Now, what is that? So, you've seen that vulnerability management, web application security. So what we have done is tried and identified what are the digital assets in my environment. And in the cloud, in the public cloud, what are the digital assets that you own or you might be using that the cloud is providing, right? It becomes a little more complicated when it comes to the cloud and the resources on the cloud that you are using, because many of them are no more servers that you have to harden or firewalls that you have to harden. It's a more abstract, it's more software driven when it comes to cloud, right? And with that in mind, we know that there are different aspects in the cloud digital assets that needs to be secured in different manners. And that from there comes the terminology of what we call as CNAP but then the definition of CNAP is continuously changing. What we want to bring in this particular demo and this workshop is give you a glimpse of these building blocks of cloud security. I prefer not to use the word CNAP because I talk to a zero trust guy, he will say CNAP in a different way, and I talk to a SASE guy, he will talk in a different way, and I am talking in a different way, right? While there are no standardization as such around what constitutes CNAP. So let's just keep it cloud security, right? So in the cloud security portion, if I have to think from a proactive security idea, the first thing is I should be able to know what are the digital assets that I most probably would be configuring myself and which potentially can be hacked. Now, what are these systems that potentially can be hacked in the cloud? The virtual machines anyway, the EC2 instances, that's there, that's given, right? Then there are these serverless functions, which if you configure it incorrectly, can still be compromised, and there is an identity portion there, right? From there came the idea of SIAM or KIM, or Cloud Identity and Entitlement Management. So we'll see a bit of how CIEM, now there is a confusion around, is identity management going to handle? Yes, of course. Is identity governance going to handle this? Yes, of course. So there is a lot of overlap. Now it is up to you to decide how you will handle the overlap, because security vendors are very good in complicating things. Though I'm a vendor, I know, but I hope I'll be able to simplify the whole. And now, so CIEM, Cloud Identity and Entitlement Management, we'll see a little bit of that. Of course, we'll do the cloud security posture management, which is the basic configuration and making sure that the configuration is hardened. We'll see a portion of the vulnerabilities in the EC2 and how simple and easy we should be making it, because in the real world, in the on-prem world, people are used to doing a scan every 1 month. In the cloud, that would be disastrous, right? How do you do workload protection on the cloud, right? How do you do the Kubernetes security? And so there is a lot of, and of course the DevSecOps will not be doing the DevSecOps part of it, but from a completeness perspective, I thought I'll just put them in the slide, that from a cloud security, even DevSecOps is a very important component, because every remediation ideally should be done at the code level so that the next build comes out secure, right? So you don't, in the real world, you will go ahead and say, what is remediation? Let me patch the system. In the cloud world, you will say, let me build the system again, rather than patching the system, right? So there is a little shift in how we do things, primarily because it's software defined. We should use the software defined power to do our remediations, which is where the DevSecOps comes into picture as far as infrastructure as build is concerned. You all with me so far, right? The things that we are going to do. So what we are going to do is provide you a little bit of how all of these terms that I used, all these building blocks, how are they really related to each other? If I have an identity which is compromisable, and if that identity is limited to this laptop, and it is not in the domain, and it's a personal laptop, what is the blast radius of this laptop? Blast radius means who else will get affected if my system, which is not connected to the domain or not trusted by any other systems, is compromised. The blast radius will remain this. But if this is a domain guy, it's attached to the domain, and I as a domain admin have got hacked through whatever password sharing or whatever, the blast radius is much, much bigger, right? So even in the cloud, the same concept goes. If a cloud identity is compromised, and that identity has lots of privileges, when it is hacked into a virtual machine which has critical vulnerabilities, you can imagine what is the impact of that hack versus a hack onto a user ID which is being used on a serverless system. Or it is coming into a server which is attached to a S3 bucket which is private versus if it is public. The combinations can be innumerable. You all with me so far? We want to see this shared responsibility of cloud security, how you can deliver that shared responsibility on your side in a more informed manner. Right? At the end of the day, cloud security is a shared responsibility. Again, we all on the same page on that side, right? And pretty much every hack that has happened on the cloud security has been pointed onto the customer, not the cloud guys. It has always been a misconfiguration that has been done by the customer. And that configuration, possible misconfiguration, is what we want to find out. Contextualize that, because just like on the on-prem system, the vulnerabilities that you see, you've got a huge list of vulnerabilities. How many of you are familiar with that Excel sheet of vulnerabilities? Right? Okay. We all know that pain. It never gets solved. Right? That's my bread and butter though, creating that Excel sheet. But it's okay. In the cloud, we want to do it fresh. We want to do it in such a manner that I find out the context and give you the right prioritization which is actionable at the code level, so that the full cycle is done, right? So that is where I was coming at in terms of the building blocks and how these building blocks tie up to each other and how you can yourself tie these things up based upon your business needs is what we thought we will do in this particular workshop. Okay? So that was my last slide. I will talk about, if my time permits, about the maturity journey as well. The maturity journey is no different from the maturity journey that you would do on ad hoc, repeatable, managed, etc., and how that whole thing works. If time permits, we'll do that, but I do not think we will have time for that. For that, you'll have to come and visit my booth. Okay, with that, can we start distributing the user IDs? It's all distributed? We can start. This would be the portal where people will have to. So what we'll have to do is, step one, once you get the user ID passwords, just log on to this particular site, and you will be asked, you will have to request access, right? Once you request access, we will provide you what we call as a just-in-time access for a time duration, so that you can do what we do. And then once you have been, so my colleagues would go ahead and you will have access for around 2 hours from the time you log in. One of the things that we have been, of course, being a workshop and all, please make sure that you're using it more in terms of good faith, because obviously we are not covered by any NDA, any of those. So just use this as a learning ground rather than any competitive pitch. That's my only request, right? Okay, I had to say that. So legal disclaimers, right? Then you will log on to here. As you log on with that same user ID password, you will get access to the platform. Once somebody is logged in, everybody has, whoever has laptops, have got the user ID passwords. Yeah, mobile will be too difficult. I mean, there are a lot of widgets. We'll be showing the whole thing. I mean, you can see. And of course, you can ask us to click a button if you want me to do a little bit of deep dive. I can do that. The idea of giving you the login is so that you can yourself see and navigate through the data that is out there. Okay? So once here, we have sufficient number. I had created around 200 user ID passwords. So we should be able to cover everybody. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot. We'll also be running a Kahoot in the background. So I like to call this workshop as a mini CTF. CTF means? Right, it's a mini one because the answers I would be giving you, all you have to do is search yourself, copy paste, because you can't remember what you see here. So you will have to copy paste, which means you do have to navigate to that page to copy paste the answer into Kahoot. Get Gagan a user ID password, please. Laptop. Are we done? We need to. So when you are logging in, if anybody has logged in into the just-in-time portal, you will be asked to register. Please do put in the names so that we can correlate who is who. We do have some prizes to distribute. Anybody already in to the JIT portal? No? Not yet?
We can do it for one of the users and show how distributed.
Anybody finding it difficult? It should be a fairly straightforward thing. Just put in the user ID password and you'll be asked to change password? No, I don't think so there's any change password. All you have to do is request access. I just didn't want to put 2 logins on my system. That is why I'm not able to project. But anybody in? Not yet. Can we have a look? Huh? No, can you look, I mean, as they are going through, if there's any? Yeah, the password is a little complicated. We didn't see a place where I could say that you can use simple passwords. The tool just didn't give me that option to say password policy can be simple. So we came up with a fairly complicated password. All right. So these are the only two settings. I mean, whoever are in, if you can log on to the Kahoot site as well. Okay, Navin is in. Perfect. We'll start. Yeah? So I'll hand it over to Gagan, who is the actual technical guy. I just talk. So over to you, Gagan.
All right. I hope you can hear me at the last. Yep. So this is the Tenable Cloud Security Console, the tool that we have spoken till now. It's a multi-cloud supported tool, which means we support all the public Azure, AWS, and Google. Right now, you see that AWS console or the 2 accounts from AWS is onboarded right now, right? It's a role-based driven technology, so you can configure your multiple roles basis the multiple accounts that are getting onboarded. If one team is handling one of the accounts, you can provide the access so that they are able to navigate across all the findings, all the configurations, all the onboarding stuff with respect to their own profile and the applications that they are responsible for. Right now, I've got multiple accounts. I've got 2 accounts from AWS. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing a lot of numbers. These numbers are nothing but the discovered resources from those 2 accounts, right? And they are classified into multiple categories, right from compute, network, IAM, right? If I just navigate to the compute part, out of 36, I have got 6 EC2 instances, EBS volumes, and then some images as well, right? Now, if I move to the IAM resources, you will see the IAM definitions coming in from AWS as well. Now, good part with Tenable Cloud Security is it is not restricting itself to the identity providers from these three cloud providers. We also support third-party cloud identity providers as well. You have it maybe Okta coming in, and those users or identities have certain profiles or permissions in the accounts. We have the options, we have the capability to understand their privileges in our accounts and then see if there are permissions which are not required or how those permissions are acting in our environment.
I think this is where the things become different with the approach that we are talking. We are talking about third-party identities, we are talking about your own identities or your Azure AD identities, right? So one organization can actually start having multiple of these repositories and the relationships between them. Yeah, go ahead. So let's me not take much.
Sure. Right, so let me get into one of the resource and we will go through the resource configuration to understand what kind of network configuration it has, what level of IAM resources it has been aligned with. Right, so the moment I click on the EC2 instance, I've been presented with all the EC2 instances that I'm running with. It tells me about the creation date, the state that it is lying in right now, operating system, and once I move to the right, now you will observe that it has started putting a context around it. Now, what level of context it is? From the network exposure point of view, whether it's a direct access or an indirect access. Now, when I say direct, it means via security group, it has been directly exposed to the internet. And indirect could be via load balancers, right? So that's the definition of network exposure. When it comes to the scope of it, whether limited set of IP has the access from the public or everybody has access. So right now, for the demo part, I have given all the IP addresses, right? Which should not be. And if I move further, you see the exposed port, the vulnerabilities, and other stuff, right? This is more of a meta information that has been crawled from the resource discovery piece itself. Till now, we have not done any intelligence on top of it. We have just discovered the resources, understood their configuration, and given the crux out of it. The moment I get into the EC2 instance itself, now I can dig in more details around it. Right from the network, IAM, workload. If I move to the network part, it tells me about the security group configuration, what kind of rules are configured, which security group it is aligned with, what can be the source, and what all ports which are exposed for this EC2 instance. Which means from here itself, if there are configuration issues with the security group or the network related information, I can grab it from here itself. When I move to the IAM, it tells me about all the permission that this EC2 instance has, which role it is attached to, which policy it is actually being adopted, and then what level of permission it has. Let me probably move to the other one, which may have more interesting data.
People who have logged in, are you able to navigate through this screen? Perfect.
Yeah. All right, so for this particular instance, I can see Amazon S3 full access policy has been configured. It has got certain resources which can be accessed. And you will observe that some of the access has been denoted with certain colors, which means we are also analyzing what is the level of permission we have given to that resource, right? Whether it's an excessive permission or a used permission. Now, the definition of excessive is if you're not using that permission at all, right? We will mark it or we will flag that as an excessive permission, right? Now, you can put the filters around it and see what all excessive permissions are there for this particular EC2 resource. So now you'll see, right? So we discovered the resources. Now we are getting into one of the resources to understand what kind of permissions it has from the network perspective, from IAM perspective. If you want to understand it in more detail rather than graphical, I would rather prefer, this tabular kind of format where I can click on the accessible resource and see, okay, for this particular S3 bucket, what level of permission I have from the EC2 instance, right? And I can see all of them are coming under excessive permissions. Now, these kind of issues with respect to each resource that I have across the account, it could be network related, it could be IAM related, right? We are recording all such findings as a observation in the system itself, and you will see the finding section. The moment I go to the finding section, now it is recording all the findings, whether it is coming from IAM, network, or from the workload, from vulnerabilities perspective, and we are putting the dynamic severity around it. Now, when I say dynamic, it means considering the kind of impact it will have on the environment, we are adjusting the severity of it. So for example, we spoke about the excessive permissions, right? So one of the findings says overprivileged IAM. Let's get into it and understand what it is talking about, right? Now, along with the high-level information about the account, about the EC2 instances, about the meta information, the kind of permission it has, it also states the reason why I'm saying that this is critical for you, right? So it simply says that it has a critical severity since the role has severe excessive permission and it's linked to the internet-facing compute with vulnerabilities, with critical vulnerabilities. Now, what is happening? Just think about a scenario. I have got an EC2 instance which has got a public access. It has got critical vulnerabilities. And now it has excessive permissions to move literally in the organization. Which means if I'm an attacker, I would look for an EC2 instance which has got critical vulnerabilities. Now I'm able to take hold of that machine and now I can literally move into the organization considering the roles which are aligned to that EC2 instance, right? So this is what we are calling it as a toxic combination. Why toxic combination? Because there are certain observations, if they are looked into individual manner, they may not be looking that severe to us. But when they're combined together, they can impose bigger threat to the organization, right? Now, when it comes to the observation, we understood, okay, these are the privileges which needs to be tuned. From remediation perspective, it also guides me what needs to be done, how it needs to be resolved. If I'm a user of IAC as a concept, if I have adopted IAC, we can get the IAC configuration right from the console. With a one-click remediation, we can resolve that issue. But if you're using console, it tells me step by step what needs to be done. Right, so just focus on the next steps because those would be one of the questions in your Kahoot, right? You cannot see IAC, so this is the IAC configuration. You can't see IAC? Are you on the same finding that I am?
No, I'm on a different line.
Yeah, so let's say if that resource is not provisioned with IAC as a backend, you won't be able to see that code.
See, the program is intelligent. It will not give any menus if it is not there.
So let's say if I provision that particular account using my IAC as a tool, it will display whole configuration and the differential configuration which needs to go in from the remediation per se. But if you have not adopted that, from the account onboarding perspective, if you have not onboarded the IAC for that environment, you won't be able to see that. Yeah. Now I'm moving to the console configuration. So it tells me that, what needs to be done. So you need to detach that excessive permissive policy, which is aligned to that EC2 instance. And then what will happen if I detach that? How should I resolve it? What changes it will make to my overall environment of the configuration? I can simply click on the differential. Yep, you can see the color codes, right? So on the left hand side, you will see that the current configuration which is there and the lines which have been highlighted, those are the issues that we need to resolve from the policy per se. On the right hand side in the green, those are the configurations which will get added to the IAM configuration. Now, if you'll notice, right now I have actions on all the S3 buckets and S3 object lambda as well. But when it comes to the right-hand side configuration, it is telling me that you take specific actions which we have seen you have been working upon, right? So considering the role that you have been adopted, we have seen that you have been doing these activity or such activities in your environment, and we recommend that considering the historical pattern, you adopt these policies because those looks more of your aligning to your roles, right? So that's how we understood the resource that we discovered certain resources. We took an example of one of the EC2 instance, understood what level of configuration it has, and then moving to a specific finding to see what level of remediations we can adopt using this technology, right? Now you would have noticed that we moved from one of the EC2 instances. We understood that one of the toxic combination is running with respect to that EC2 instance. But good part with Tenable is it has already done that analysis for you at the back end, right? It has already discovered a lot of toxic combinations which I may be running in. I don't need to get into each and every EC2 instance or IAM role and check their configuration, right? It would be hard for us to do that job. Or probably if that is required, then probably tools requirement is not there because I can log in into each account and check the configuration. So rather than doing it, it gives me the toxic combination out of the box, right? It tells me that you have got one public workload with critical vulnerabilities and high privileges. This is exactly the use case that we navigated right from EC2 instance. So let's look into this resource. Now you would notice that it has just put in the filter saying that network exposure is direct internet access from all of the IP addresses, vulnerability is running, and then you have a privileged access. So basically what it is doing is when I'm discovering the resource, I'm running certain policies check against each and every resource to see what kind of configuration it is, whether it is aligned with the best practices or not, or the policies that I have configured as part of my own organization policy. If those are not matching, we are keeping that as a finding. Findings are getting correlated. Certain findings would be coming from the network side, certain findings would be from the IAM side. I'm correlating all those findings and giving you a toxic combination. Right? So this is one of the unique way of discovering toxic combinations in the environment that we have come across. Right? And this is the feedback from the industry. So this toxic combination is helping us to navigate through the critical areas within the environment. What should be my top priority, right? When it comes to prioritization, we have seen how we are doing it across vulnerability management, right? Critical VPRs, what is exploitable, what is not exploitable, what is the recency, all those combinations. In cloud, this is the way we have discovered the toxic combinations that you can adopt. Any questions?
We
Yeah.
have a Kahoot coming up on this.
Yep, I can move to the Kahoot. Are you guys ready?
You've navigated to whatever we have done, you've been able to, how many of you have been able to navigate whatever we just showed on the access that we gave? Only one? Okay. Oh, we have got two. Then we can do the Kahoot. Let's go ahead and do that.
I'm sure if you remember my story, right, the toxic combination and how we can navigate into the EC2 instance to understand the issues and move to the remediation part, I'm sure you'll be able to address the questions coming forward.
So let's start. Oh, you didn't get the QR code? I got it. Perfect.
All right, here you go. So we have 60 seconds to answer this question. How many critical findings were there on the EC2 instance with the toxic combination?
So we navigate to the toxic combination page, find out the vulnerabilities, how many are critical. You could also do a filter on critical and just get the number straight. All right.
Yep, so most of the answers are correct, which is 8. So if you navigate to the toxic combination, click on the public finding, move to the finding section. You want me to do that? Okay. Right, so this is what the toxic combination is all about. I clicked on this public instance. I have the EC2 instance. Now the question is, how many critical findings were there on this EC2 instance? If I click on this, move to the finding section, I can see 1, 2, 3 are being critical. I think a couple of them are high and rest of them are medium. So that was the question, how many of them are critical? So answer is 3. Moving to the next one. All right, so we'll skip it for now. Yep.
A little more complicated, but again, the idea would be the same. We want to see the issue from different angles, right? So now this one is from the access perspective.
Now just focus on the story that I mentioned, that how can I understand what all permission this EC2 instance actually requires.
So this took me at least almost a month for me to navigate. We are asking you to do it in a few seconds. I know what you're going through, but many of you might just be more familiar with this navigation. But is this question, any of you who are running, cloud security, how important is it for you to really be asking these questions to your security team or cloud team or whoever is responsible? Is there a security risk that we need to solve that is answered by such a question? Any comments while we wait for, okay, we are done on this. Okay.
Yep. So most of the answers are, I would say, incorrect. Right. So only 3 are correct. Let me move to that instance. Right. So now it says that the question is over privileged IAM role finding. What is the error of the bucket that it actually needs to access? So if you move to this instance, and if you go to the usage and say use permissions, right, it will tell you about the S3 bucket that it requires access to. A bit tricky one, but that's how you can navigate that it was accessing that S3 bucket already, right? So it means it requires access to that S3 bucket. So if I click on this, I can navigate to this S3 bucket and I can understand the errand which is lying there.
Make sense? Anybody? Right?
Yep.
The point is, this is what you are doing, you will be doing, using an identity access management solution as well, most probably. I don't know, I mean, do we go down to the S3 level with an IAM solution? You will start saying, okay, no, IAM actually doesn't handle that level, because it's more of an application level resource access that IAM most probably is not going to handle, right? So I always position this particular solution as a supplement solution to your identity governance solutions, because this is working at the system level, right? Identity governance solutions works at the business application roles privileges. I need admin access, but admin access actually means what is down out here. And I've given him 15 accesses. He uses only 1. The rest, can I just remove it for now? Is the question that if there is a policy, then this can give you a straight answer to you that this 14, let me take it off. He is not using it. If he needs one of these, can I use that just in time that I talked earlier? Can I use that? Because once in 6 months if he is going to use it, it's best to remove it and do a just in time. You getting the approach? Right? Without overcomplicating, let's move forward.
Sure. Now, what S3 actions are needed for the EC2 instance to operate on the bucket? Now, it is moving from a policy or permissions to the actual actions that it requires. So just follow the previous use case and understand what were the actual action it was supposed to do.
Okay. Perfect.
Yep. Excellent.
Got it. See, people are already getting familiar. It's so easy.
Yep. So moving on to the next use case, right? So right now what we have seen, how it can discover the resources, how it can run the policies or the checks against those resources and understand the issues which are lying there, right? Now, next such issue is all about the secrets, how we maintain the secrets or the passwords in our systems or the configuration, and how it can detect.
And before we move forward, secrets in cloud environment. Anybody want to volunteer a quick definition of that?
Anything which is used, a string or a connection which is used by the connection strings, maybe a password or maybe a database connection string that is required by the application.
So if it is exposed on the internet, what happens?
Someone else can use that.
Someone else can use that. So it's important. Secrets, we use the word secrets and then really start thinking it's really a secret. If this is the identity that you are just letting it. How common is this problem? If you know anybody, how common is this particular secrets management problem or exposed secrets? Rough percentage of how many hacks happen because of exposed secrets? It's embarrassingly high, right? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, how many times we have used organization@123 in our
And
environment,
it's exposed.
right?
But
So
it's just exposed
yeah.
out there when it's available for anybody who cares to look into it.
right? So how Tenable has done it is it understands those configuration, how EC2 instances S3 buckets are exposing those secrets in a plain text manner, right? Now one of the finding your dashboard says that one secret has been exposed through the lambda function environment variables. So like I said, so all such issues are being recorded as a finding. So this finding section here, it talks about all the findings that I have across all the resources that I'm running with, right? Here we can do the filtering basis multiple levels, that that specific check that if I want to understand who is exposing that secret, right? So let me just see if I have any policies with respect to the secret itself. So it says EC2 instance is exposing secrets, Lambda is exposing secret as well. So let me navigate to the Lambda one. And it tells me that yes, one of the Lambda function is exposing the secret, right? Let's get into this observation and see how we can further navigate. Again, the overview, again, the context around it, why we are saying it's a critical or a high level observation for us, right? From remediation perspective, yes, we'll be guided with what steps we need to take. But before that, let's look into this particular function and see what kind of configuration it is lying with, right? So let's go to the IAM part and see the permission that it has. Similar stuff. From ISC, I can see the resource configuration. And if you come down, you will also see the access key secret and ID being lying there, right? From findings, you will see that same finding is again being recorded into this. So what we did, we navigated right from the main findings page to understand the policy, who is exposing secrets, right? Such findings we can further navigate to see who is exposing secrets and what remediation can be done, right? So that's how we move to our next cohort section, where we'll focus more on.
Before we go into the code section, we have oversimplified the finding.
Yep.
Mostly secrets finding doesn't look so straightforward. If it is such straightforward, then you are anyway hacked already. And it wouldn't happen like that. Okay. So,
All right, so I'm moving to the next one. So time for quiz. So we want to understand the name of the Lambda function that exposes a secret. Should be an easy one, right?
I mean, in the spirit of workshop, if anybody is, feeling like sharing a bit, it will be really appreciated. Any thoughts coming into your mind till we've been going through this whole thing for the last 1 hour almost. Any thoughts, any comments while we wait for Zero? Okay.
Yep, so it is loose IPS lambda. So if I move back to my findings, so this was the function, it was exposing secrets, right? So it should have been easy one. All right.
So before we go, any comments, any thoughts that you would like to share? Or is it way too boring or way too complicated? Anything. It's helpful? Perfect. That's encouraging. Thank you. Anybody else has got any views to share up till now or new learning? Is it new? Okay. Okay, perfect.
The power is in the correlation.
Power is in the correlation. And that correlation is what we have given a new term, exposure. Okay. So, of course, the idea within the cloud world is the correlation. Now, we want to make sure that this correlation is happening across cloud resources, web resources, on-prem resources, on-prem identity resources, and so forth. Right? The world can become very complicated, but the complexity will come up, will bubble up. The most important one with the combination. Right? It's almost like the SOC world where we used to see logs and we wanted to correlate so that we see the event. Right? right, or the incident. That's the idea as well.
Actually, the contextualization. So when each one of the issue, if you probably look at it, somebody manually identifies what it is getting exposed to this toxic combination. I think a lot of solutions are started to provide this combination to correlation. But the second aspect comes in the simplicity or the navigation of the solution or how intuitive is your user interface.
Correct.
So I think what I think this is that kind of addressing all of this very nicely. Because identifying detection is the first thing. We should not have lesser detection. We should have the right detection. We should have the right prioritization, which actually requires the right amount of correlation. So you look at the workloads, you look at the identity, you look at the correlation, you look at the system being used, and then you come up with something which needs more attention or faster attention than others. That's great. And the representation of it in terms of graphically how you're representing it, the interactiveness of the dashboard, it gives the user the capability to very easily extract the information required against going through those files and logs and things like that.
I don't think so. My guys would have put it in such simple way. Thank you so much for that feedback. Beautiful. Right, so that's exactly what we want to do. A SOC guy or a security guy doesn't know enough of cloud to be able to navigate all issues. We need to make it simple for him to be able to talk to the guys who are going to do. The developers will come back and say, "What code is this?" Should be able to explain that this is what we do. Right, so perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Yep. What is the value of the actually access key ID over there?
So we are using many words, attack path analysis, contextualization in terms of attack path analysis, which is more in terms of a specific group of people trying to hack. So there is a context of that as well. Correlation is another context. Exposure management is another context. So we try to see how much of analytics that we can build on the raw data that is available. The raw data is humongous. We just can't manage it until and unless we bring in that idea.
Yep. The next one is which EC2 instance is now exposing a secret. Previously, we saw about the Lambda function. Now it's about the EC2 instance. So now just focus on the example that how I navigated to understand how many secrets are being exposed or who all are exposing secrets. So just follow that story and you should be able to navigate to the answer.
Right, so this is the context of CWPP. Right, the runtime vulnerabilities in the cloud. We have traditionally tried to analyze the image because that image is immutable. So when it is running, most probably there is not going to be any change. So if I secure the image, most probably the runtime will also be the same. But it's always not the case. So doing a workload protection runtime as well as at the image level or at the repo level, there is a need to do both the cases. Right? So this one is the runtime where it is running. We have examples, but I don't think so we'll cover it. But there is also the case where we are doing an image scan and coming up with the software bomb and coming up with the vulnerability so that before you instantiate that image, you have rectified it.
Right, so we can easily put a filter of EC2 instance exposing secrets, right? So that's how you can navigate to that finding and see what was the EC2 here, which was exposing a secret, right? So quite a simple one. All right, so
I mean, I keep getting questions.
I'm skipping this one. I'm skipping this one. So in the interest of time, let me just.
Question as, okay, you guys have created your own correlation. So what about me? I want to do my own correlation. So we do have limited no-code way of creating our own correlation, writing our own policies. It's there. We are not going to cover that, but you can create your own correlation as well. You can't skip the time.
You can. Probably this is the last question, and then we'll move to the CIM part. Yeah.
The problem is that today there are specialized tools of CIEM, specialized tools of CWPP, specialized CSPM. The guys who started off this is from Armatic. They started off with all the tools as their end game. What do you expect? Third and fourth options. It's just these two.
Yeah, this one is
It is?
both of them.
Okay, I didn't have Armatic to check the book.
There was one more question.
Yeah, most probably it's just
There was one more question earlier, so we need to look at it.
Absolutely. We never checked that.
All right. So I'm now moving to another piece, which is identity intelligence, or how I can understand what all identities I am running with, what are the relevance of those identities, and how those identities are accessing resources within my environment, right? So again, going to the main menu, right? Earlier we were in findings. Now I'll be moving to the IAM section. From here, I'll build the permissions query. As it states permissions query, it means you can understand who has access to what level of resources, right? Or what kind of resources. So from here, I can, you see, a lot of filters are coming in right from permission scope to see, what kind of actions I can take. From resource account is nothing but my destination, which would be accessed. From another filter says identity type. Identity type could be your user or role, your identity, maybe identity. Yep, from identity per se. So this tool is meant to discover the patterns that you wish to go for. For example, let's say if I go to my resource labels and say how many third parties I have in my environment, right? You can simply extract the level of third parties that you are running in your environment, or how many of them have got access key with them. Now this labeling that you are seeing right now, this is happening automatically out of the box the moment we are discovering the resources, right? We are not doing this manually. However, you can do that if you wish to. If you wish to follow any specific labels in your environment across the accounts, you can do that. But these are the things which are happening out of the box for you, right? So
labels are nothing but tags based upon the findings attached to that. Right? We are automatically tagging them as vulnerable. And then you can search on that particular tag.
Yep.
You remediate it, the tag gets removed. So that way it's a little easier to navigate.
So right now I have got two level of accounts. One is development, another one is the production one. If I want to understand from development who all can go ahead and access my
So the label is decided through the policy. If this policy is violated, apply this label.
Or for example, let's say EC2 instances are given all IP access from the internet. I'll mark that EC2 with a label public. If the OS is unpatched or if it is vulnerable, I'll label it as OS unpatched. So that's how those
label is a stored query. Something like that.
So I just put a filter saying that identity account is a development, resource account is a production. So these are all the identities which has got access or permissions in production zone right from development. Right. So just with two filters, I'm able to navigate.
How important is this particular use case? How important is this use case? Important, not important? A dev guy has access to production. It happens But getting that list quickly and validating that it is actually getting used, or is it just there because I needed the access at some point of time and it's not getting used in the last 60 days to be. Right? If it is getting used, there is a certain business need of it. You can analyze them and say, yes, it is needed, not needed. Right? So there is nothing right or wrong in all of these things. This is how businesses work. But to be able to show the usage part of it as well is what makes the CIM piece a little more powerful. Right?
Now, this level of analysis, somebody would debate that I can do that right from the accounts also, right? I can understand how many accounts I have. I can understand how many users or identities I have. I can still run through some SOPs and all. Now is the level of intelligence that we have put in on top of it. I can go to the permissions query and say how many of them can do the privilege escalation for me. How many of them can do the reconnaissance for you, right? How many of them have got data access in your environment in the development to production. So now from that list, now I have got these many resources or identities which has got privilege access or escalation as access in the environment, right? So this is the level of intelligence or contextualization which is happening across all the data that we have.
Now, I mean, I don't know, maybe just to, I never knew that there is a specific role which says, yes, you can escalate your own privilege. Cloud में ऐसा होता है, I mean, normal Unix में switch and router में होता था. As you log in, you also can escalate yourself to an admin. But normal Unix में at least, I'm not sure, maybe the thing, it wasn't there. But in cloud, when I am given a privilege through which I can promote myself to admin, so that I can do certain work, and that admin remains, and I have to de-escalate. I don't know what the whole thing works, but that was amazing when we went through this whole program. Cloud guys or SOC guys or security guys can actually see the level of granularity that these public clouds are giving, and misusing or mismanaging those privileges. It's so very easy because you've got so many options. Let's stick to mismanagement now.
No, this is a good point, right? So when you say misusing, right, so we are recording those actions as well, right? So now with that, let me just take you to one of the EC2 instance and show you that part. It's good that you brought this up.
No, misuse we were talking in terms of malicious. Mismanagement is inadvertent misuse.
Right, so I've got, let's say, too many permissions in my IAM roles, right? Those could be excessive or used one, but how many of them are actually getting used, or what all actions are being recorded? So under the activity log, I can see the identities and the actual originator. Even if it is doing the assume role thing within the cloud, right? I will have the actual originator combination coming in. I would actually get to know who was the actual user who assumed that role to perform that activity on the S3 buckets, right? So thank you for this.
Again, this one was an eye-opener for me. One identity. How many assumed identities I have? AD में होता था service account and all, but this has taken to a completely different level.
Yep. So another one is the identity intelligence. Now I'll try to summarize here from the CIM perspective, considering the timelines that we have, right? So identity intelligence is now telling me about the risk with each identity that is running in my account. Those could be coming in from the third party, right? Or the labels that we have spoken, right? So I can understand if I'm running, let's say, 500 identities from third party, how many of them are running with risk. Basis the kind of permissions that they have and the kind of privileges that they have in the environment itself, right? Now I can see this tenable role has got 172 services that it can access and 1400 resources across it. It has got 0 findings right now, but it's a privileged one for me, and it has got high severe permissions. So that's how I can immediately understand the identities. I don't need to do that manually or understand whether it is his role or not. If it's an excessive permission, it's an excessive permissions, right? We need to dig in to understand why is he not using those permissions in production, right? So with that, I summarize the CIM part. Now there are certain topics that we were not able to touch about the CWPP or how we can do the anomaly detection within the environment as well, right? I may have certain permissions, I may be using it, but is it deviating from my own behavior in a longer run, right? I may have admin rights, but I have never seen, or from Tenable perspective, we have not observed that identity to taking those actions in the environment. It is being doing it for the very first time. We will flag that as an anomaly within that. So that's how we define the baseline as well, and highlight the anomalies around it. Should not be, right? If it's a finding, I'm taking a decision basis what I'm seeing it as a configuration, right? Anomalies, yes, could be a case that he's doing it maybe once in 3 months, and we are defining a baseline for that period, and then it is not being actually an anomaly for you. Could be a case, but from the configuration per se, should not be. Yeah.
Yeah, because see, there are two things around finding. One is a condition A plus B plus C. If it is there or not there, right? So there is no false positive there, because you have said I want to. The other one, which is the anomalous one, where we are saying that if there is something happening that I have not seen earlier, flag it. It's a high chance of saying that. Then the highest chance comes if I start using AI. Right? We're not using AI yet. So the AI part. Okay, we'll not open this. So it's anomalous, could be could be a false positive, but it is still good to know that this is the very first time this guy escalated itself to admin, not wanted to talk to this S3 bucket just because he has permission. Right? So
All right. So now from Kahoot, we are still 22 questions behind.
now we cannot continue. We'll have
Yep.
to go ahead and how much time do we? We still have 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
The time is there. You can do another 10 minutes.
Okay, let's see how many questions we can cover, and the basis of topics that we have discussed.
You want to cover the context of this? Which instance?
Yeah, so I think this is the previous one only, so it's already done, I think. So yeah, it's a previous question.
So you want to show this in the demo? What we were trying to do?
No, it's a genuine question, right? So it says that, or it asks you that whether I can give you the HTTP access only through the load balancer. The answer is no, right? If it's a public IP address, I can configure the security groups to open the direct HTTP port, which is 80, right? So it should be an easy one. Now from here, permissions query, the permissions, IAM permissions, intelligence that we just discussed. Now it actually goes to the same demo which I did. From development to production, who has the access with Amazon S3 full access policy? So you have time. It's around a minute, more than a minute.
The permissions query, I personally feel is the most powerful tool. Personally feel in the sense from feedback that we have heard, the permissions query is something that is just not available. To be able to quickly go through an AWS permission and a GCP permission and a Azure permission in a single thing. So if there is a permission cross multi-cloud, it will come up here as well. Right? So on the top, we have just that only one AWS. We actually could do the search across AWS and GCP. So we've got a multi-cloud. That can make it very, very complicated. If I were to look into the identities manually and figure out what is the connection. We always do this demo of production to development, and it always catches the eye of user. And of course, there are more such combinations that you might want to try.
So I've given a hint. Here you can follow. Identity account is going to be development, resource account is production, and then you can navigate through the permissions to see who has got that level of access from development to production. Moving on to the next one. I'm just okay. I'm skipping this one. Yep. So third party who can do the privilege escalation in production. Or let me just skip this one because this is also a bit tricky one. Let me just skip it.
Any other demo that you have?
No, I think I'm done from the demo per se.
Okay.
Yeah.
Almost we've done on time. Do we have a anomalous one?
No,
Not in this
no, no, no.
Okay, I think, how many of you want to continue with the Kahoot stuff, or you want to? Okay.
Okay.
I need one more hand to continue. Otherwise, I'll just declare her the winner. That's it. Okay. Then we'll have a tussle.
So just focus on the labels for this one as well. What is the error of the IM user with the access key?
So we have two serious workshop users with a little discharged laptop. I just try to pull this up. So for rest of the team, one of the things that we are doing by which we get this is we are actually looking into the CloudTrail data, the audit data, so that we know which privileges are actually getting breached. Right? So there is a need for me to pull the audit logs, create that chart of the usage, and based upon that usage, I am saying what is excessive, what is least. Right? So it is again not something that I am correlating to the IEM system, where no such similar thing is there. I'm purely going by the usage as provided by the audit trail data. Okay. So, and because I'm using that logs, I have come up with this idea of anomalous behavior. Right? So that way, it is not a pure play. So all the functions are more in terms of finding weakness. This one cloud data and reconciliation is also about finding a weakness and finding a incident.
I have a question regarding the vulnerability. So how are you getting those vulnerability data? We have an Indian test.
So that's, you can imagine, Tenable has been doing the vulnerability for the last 20 odd years, right? This is all that we are.
This particular product.
Same.
You are scanning from your cloud
No, we're using snapshots.
from AWS.
All of these guys have got a AWS, Azure, as well as GCP has a way by which I can create a snapshot, scan the snapshot, and the part of the integration that we are doing with the Tenable is take this vulnerability data and putting what we call as vulnerability priority data. So that's something which is coming in January or end of December, right? So the traditional Nessus plugins, if you know about that, so the Nessus plugins power will be integrated into this. I also will have the snapshot. I will also have the Nessus way of doing things. That's maybe another 6 months down the line. But the power of Tenable vulnerability management will support this vulnerability.
Okay, I think we are done with the Kahoot part. So next one is about the Kubernetes, which we have not covered. So I'm just skipping those questions and moving to the results.
So today we are supporting Kubernetes only in the cloud environment. As we move forward, we will have Kubernetes on-prem as a supported version. So today it's just GKE and all that we are supporting.
It was a good one.
It was
Learning it practically, yeah.
perfect. We can give you extra time. Please contact us. We'll give you access. No worries about that. Right. So Kubernetes and IAC is something that we have not covered. The IAC scan is also an important aspect, right? The TerraScan part of things. How many of you have heard TerraScan? Right. So the TerraScan part of TerraScan is also important. Right? So all of those aspects, you're trying to get them together into a single dashboard so that you can navigate right from shift left to the rightmost where the web application and API scanning is also going to be part of the requirement. All right.
So we have these three winners.
Thank you. Anurag is here. Okay, out there. Good. I can now imagine the for you to see. But thank you so much for this thing. Can we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Can we have them on the
Can we
stage,
have
please?
all the participants up here, please. Atil? Oh, I think we had three winners.
Yeah. Can we have them on the stage first?
Please come on.
Anshuman Panda. Yeah, please come. Anurag and Parul. Dada.
Go ahead.
Yeah, please come.
So much for participating. Thank you so much. One for we had the caps. We did the caps.
Oh yes, we have.
Thank you so much for participating. Thank you. Can we have a quick photo of? Sure. Thank you. I hope you'll be wearing this hat so that we can recognize. Thank you again. And of course, that's the end of the session. I hope it was useful. And let's talk then more. We'll be here around for the next 3 days. So, and of course, at your office as well.